Hello, good evening, everybody.
Terry.
My name is Terry Gjersvik. I am a member of the Albert Lee Town Hall Committee, and the committee has asked me to be your moderator tonight. So on behalf of the Albert Lee Town Hall Committee, I welcome you all to a chance to get together and to talk about our government. The first thing I want to do is I want to thank this great musical group. They are called 8th Hour. It's Jeremy and Todd and Jeshua and Shane, and now my new favorite player. I'm going to pick one out, Solveig. They will be at Wind Down Wednesday on June 17th. And they are going to be at the Three Oaks Winery 3 times. Thursday the 19th, Saturday, July 20th or 26th, I'm sorry, and Thursday, August 7th. And they will also be at the Art Center on Sunday, August 17th. So thank you very much for providing the music. Before we do anything, I would ask you to face the flag and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, tonight it is going to be a presentation in 2 parts. The first part is we have 6 speakers that have prepared a speech on different topics pertaining to, in particular, our focus is the unresponsiveness of Congress to what appears to be inappropriate use of executive power by the Trump administration and by President Trump. This really started from a meeting the first Saturday of March after we'd had a week or two of Elon Musk and Doge, and then that meeting in the Oval Office with President Zelensky, which was on a Friday, and then that Saturday morning at our coffee meeting that we have normally, 8 people at, there was 50. We organized into 6 committees. One of the committees was the Town Hall Committee, and we have been working to organize Jeff Miller. Jeff, if you're of the Town Hall Committee, so don't think that I had anything to do with putting this together. It was Jeff Miller. Thank you, Jeff. So the second part, as you know, and I hope that you have seen, that you have the opportunity to pose a question to Congressman Finstead. And we will, once the speakers are done, we're going to give people about a minute who are willing to come up and read their question. If you don't want to read your question, you can check off a box and I will read your question for you. Or if you don't want to read it all, we'll just gather them all together and they're all eventually going to end up in Congressman Finstead's office. The whole meeting tonight is being recorded by Joe Stalla. Thank you, Joe. And we will also submit the recording of this meeting to Congressman Finstead. So before we get started, I want you to get an example of what a question would sound like. Jeff Miller has one ready, and he's ready to read his question now. Hopefully that will spark some thought on your part if you have not written one yet. You may hear the speakers, the 6 speakers, and something that you hear from a speaker may be a spark for you to write a question, but I really encourage you, tonight is the chance to use your voice, and that's what tonight is about, is we have a voice in our government. The Constitution, it outlines the 3 branches. The first branch is Congress, and Congress is us, and Congress responds to us. They are popularly elected, and it is the responsibility of the congressman in CD1, Minnesota, Congressman Finstead, to respond to our concerns about what we see happening to our country, America, and it doesn't look to be good. So, Jeff Miller, if you would like to give us an example of your question, please.
Okay, a little shorter. Thanks for coming. Representative Finstead, President Trump promised not to cut Medicaid. The new budget bill you voted yes for will cut roughly $700 billion in the coming years. Why did you vote yes for this?
So Jeff has some things he wants me to read, but the one personal note that I have, and as I've thought about being here tonight, is, let's go back to 1787, the Constitutional Convention. The Revolutionary War was over in 1783, so 4 years had passed, and it was apparent to our young country that our organization wasn't working and we needed a better document. We sent 55 people to Philadelphia. They asked George Washington to come and be the leader, to convene the meeting, and they put together the Constitution. And it's the first 3 articles. The first article is Congress. Congress, and I know they're supposed to be equally as powerful, but Congress is us. Congress is the people. When they designed the executive branch, which is the second part, they actually started with that, and they couldn't agree because they were all so freaked out about King George and assigning the power of running our country to one person. So they put it off to the end because they couldn't agree, and they didn't know. They thought about having 3 executives for a while, but it was very clear from the start that the executive's job was to enforce the will of the people, which was represented by the laws passed by Congress. Congress is the power. Congress is us. And the president, in their design, was not supposed to have the powers that are being employed by what we are seeing in the current Trump administration. So that's my personal note. That's why I'm here tonight. So, thank you all for attending this town hall. Our democracy depends upon citizens willing to understand and participate in our government. Our representative, Brad Finstead, chose not to attend this town hall meeting. Nonetheless, we offer this meeting as an opportunity to learn and to exercise our right to be heard and participate in our government. Everyone is deserving of respect. That means that our words and actions at this town hall will be respectful. Please do not do anything that prevents others from hearing whoever is speaking. Please silence your mobile phones. Inappropriate language and intimidation are not acceptable at this meeting. Everyone brings kernels of wisdom based upon their own unique history and experiences. We cannot know or understand what someone else thinks unless we listen to them. We cannot have a full picture until everyone has had a chance to contribute. When someone says something that challenges your thinking, listen first to understand why they think as they do. So with that, we are going to move on to our first speaker. Our first speaker is Jake Johnson. He Jake Johnson grew up a poor kid in Stewartville, Minnesota. He remembers going to bed hungry in a drafty house during the harsh Minnesota winter, but through hard work, strong community support, his mother's food stamps, and stepfather's veterans benefits, and a quality public education, Jake was able to elevate himself to the middle class. Because of Pell Grants and Stafford loans from the Department of Education, he was able to attend the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse. After he graduated, he wanted to give back to his community and interviewed for just one job, a math teacher position in Rochester Public Schools. For 19 years, Jake has taught students from remedial math to AP Calculus to help every student reach their full potential. Jake is a proud member of his union's bargaining team, where he negotiates to raise wages and improve working conditions from over 1,000 teachers, nurses, and social workers in the district. Jake has also been active in his community, serving on the board of the financial literacy nonprofit called Minnesota Jumpstart Coalition, and organizing for the recent school referendum in Rochester. And just so you all know, Jake has announced his candidacy for congressman in Minnesota District Number 1.
So thank you for having me here today. Thank you for inviting me. That was a great introduction, and I hope it paints a picture for you of where I come from. I grew up in Stewartville, it's true, and a lot of people ask me, Jake, why are you running? What got you into this? I hope it's crystal clear that I am a regular citizen who loves my job of 19 years teaching math, and I would like to continue teaching math. It's the joy of my professional life to serve my community, to serve my students, to serve their families. I am so proud that I have taught for nearly 2 decades in Rochester. But the day after the election, in November, I had a former student reach out to me. Jake, hey, you want to catch up? Sure, yeah, let's talk. And we were commiserating, we were talking about what had happened. And after going back and forth and talking about local and state and national politics, he said, I want you to consider running for Congress. I said, that's crazy. That's crazy. I'm just a teacher. He said, well, things are going to get bad, and we're going to need regular people to stand up and do something. We're going to need regular people to use their voice, use their platform, use whatever skills they have, because it's going to get bad. And so I thought about it and watched what happened. And it kind of started with word that we were going to, as a country, dismantle and attempt to take apart the Department of Education. That this was our vision for public schools in America. The Department of Education, just to be clear, serves both public and private schools across our country. And it serves students with IEPs. It serves students who benefit from Title I benefits, our most needy, financially needy students in communities all across our district and our country. See, what it represents is a dark and troubled vision for who we are as a country and where we're going. It's backward looking. Right? And so these cuts, very similar to many of the cuts that we have seen, are short-sighted and dangerous, and put our students' health, mental health, and learning outcomes at serious risk. I teach in Rochester. We had a $2 million grant that was canceled. The grant paid to prepare social workers for a future in the career, with the hope that we would be able to retain them in Rochester. But it was cut. Why? Nobody really knows why, but supposedly it's under this DEI initiative. So now our students have less access to the mental health supports that they so desperately need. An innovative program created locally and supported federally simply because it was tagged the wrong way. Our superintendent, who is not a political entity, reacted and said this is harmful for our students. Our teachers union said this is bad for our students. Our parent organization said this is bad for our students. And yet we had to do it anyway. Very similar to what we're seeing with the budget reconciliation bill that Congressman Finstad was so proud to support. Like was mentioned in my bio, I would not have been able to go to college if it wasn't for Pell Grants, period, end of story. What Pell Grants represented for me was the idea that my community was willing to invest in me even though we weren't wealthy. One thing that wasn't mentioned, I have 10 siblings. Yes. So when I went to college, it was like lots of elbow room. Woo! Right? Like, whoa, it's just me and another person in this little room instead of 4? This is incredible. Wouldn't have been possible. Would not have been possible with the cuts that are being made in this budget reconciliation bill when it comes to education. 60% of Pell Grant recipients, if it is passed in its current form, will lose or have their grant amounts reduced. 60% of our poorest students, now their college future is at risk. Millions of dollars in cuts to education are not a path forward for our country, for our communities. It's not the direction we should be going. It is backwards and it is morally wrong. So I am calling on Congressman Finstad to start representing the people that he serves. I've talked to a lot of people around this district, and the one thing that keeps coming up is why won't he answer my phone calls? Why won't he answer my emails? Why won't they talk to me in person? Why won't they show up at town hall meetings? And to me, I don't know about you, the answer is clear. It is very, very difficult and uncomfortable and probably impossible to defend the indefensible. There are a lot of teachers. There are a lot of paraprofessionals. There are a lot of school nurses and administrators and counselors and social workers and lunch ladies and custodians who serve in our communities, in our schools with honor and decency, and they do it because they look at our children as our nation's best hope. We do it not to get rich, not to get famous. We do it because schools are the heartbeats of our communities all across our district. And so when the cuts come down from the federal level and then they impact the state, guess what? They're finding us. I was at a lobby day just last week talking to legislators as part of Education Minnesota. And one of the questions I asked our representatives was, what do these federal cuts mean for you when it comes to education? And they said, Jake, we're going to need a special session. We're going to need a special session because we're trying to build an airplane with parts that we don't know where they're coming from in the air. That's what these federal cuts mean for our schools. Our children deserve better. And so I hope you share my concern. I hope you share my frustration, because it's going to take a lot of people in rooms just like this, in St. Charles, in Red Wing, in Zumbrota, in Rochester, in Winona, in Mankato, in Laverne, everywhere. It's going to take people like this stepping up and saying, we need to do better. We can do better. And guess what? We can do it together, right? It's going to take every single person in this room to say, what can I do? What's my little thing? What's my brave little thing that I can do that nobody else can do to change this around? And if we do it, we're going to win. It's been done before. Guess what? Our district likes public school teachers, right? We can do it, and we will do it as long as we do it together. I really appreciate your guys' time. You guys are heroes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jake. Our next speaker, Deb Goodnature. Deb is a lifelong resident of Freeborn County, an Albert Lee High School graduate, and a retired public school employee who took great pride in managing employee benefits for the district. She is a wife, a mother of 2 children and 4 grandchildren. She brings a unique perspective to the dedication and sacrifice of our military soldiers, both active and veteran. As a young child, she heard about her uncle who entered the armed services during World War II. He served with distinction, having landed at Normandy Beach and then fought to liberate Europe from fascism, including the liberation of a Nazi concentration camp. Her firstborn, Corey Goodnature, wanted to be a pilot, and she supported his dream to join the armed services and fly a jet fighter. The path he chose was not easy. He eventually modified his goal and instead became a helicopter pilot, mastering one of the most difficult aircraft, the MH-47, difficult to fly in calm conditions, let alone under battle. His success ultimately led to his assignment with the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, also known as the Night Stalkers. On June 28, 2005, Corey and his flight crew responded without hesitation to an urgent call for help from a Special Forces unit under attack in the mountains of eastern Afghanistan. While landing under fire, his aircraft was struck and crash-landed on the mountainside below, killing all 8 crewmen and 8 Navy SEALs. Corey freely gave our country the ultimate sacrifice of his life in order to secure the rights and freedoms of our Constitution guarantees, and that for many of us are taken for granted every day. Deb, would you come up and speak, please?
Thank you. This is kind of out of my comfort zone, but ever since Trump, the night I heard that Trump won again, I thought we were done with him. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't function because I knew what was going to happen. He told us what he was going to do. He told us he was going to destroy this, our country, our government, our leadership, because he wanted to be a king. Which I said, why don't you go over to some other island and take over that, and then we'll be all happy. But as it was, he did. And as he started overhauling our government and slashing and burning and bringing that crazy clown in that thinks he's a hero. Anyway, I don't want to talk about him. I was appalled, I was upset, I was angry, because I know the sacrifices that our veterans have put to protect our country. They They don't have any idea what it takes the courage to do what they do and protect for us. They don't think about themselves. They're thinking about us. They're thinking about their country. They take the oath to the Constitution. So do the other leaders right now in Congress that are obeying Trump. They're ignoring it. They're not governing by the Constitution. They're not doing what we want them to do. They're doing what Trump wants them to do. And what they're doing is slashing our government so their billionaires could get a little bit more money. And they're taking from the poor and the needy and our veterans and on and on and on. And especially the veterans. The reason we're all standing here and why we have a free country is because of our soldiers, the people that fight for us, that leave their families. And when they leave, you never know if they're going to return. So many times, when Corey was in Afghanistan, oh, Mom, don't worry. I'm highly trained. It's okay. Okay, sure. You still worry, but you think they'll come home. And the day that I found out that he wasn't coming home, I didn't know if I could make it another day. So I decided that we have to do something. When Trump started destroying the country, my son and many other people's husbands, wives, have fought for this. And I am not going to sit back and keep my mouth shut and please everybody because they don't agree with me. I don't really give a... And also, have you ever heard what the president says about POWs? People that are wounded. They're losers. They're suckers. He told General Kelly that he doesn't want to be around any wounded soldiers. It's not a good look for me. The evil and the arrogance of this man is just beyond belief. And then our representative goes along with this. I mean, it's unbelievable. He's willing to cave, take benefits away from the needy, the education. I mean, every area. I'm just speechless. That's all you can say. But luckily we have somebody that's going to, hopefully, he's going to win.
Yeah.
And we can get people in that are going to fight for us. And we can't sit back. I mean, I know a lot of people, this is not my comfort zone. I'm a political person in my own house. But I will seldom vocal, maybe vocal otherwise. But I've ended that. I'm not going to be quiet anymore. There's just no excuse for this. This is evil, and we have to put a stop to it. And that is people. For putting on this town hall, all of you, and for you people to be here. I'm happy to see that there's people here that care and that are going to fight for our country. Let's go.
Our next speaker, Professor James Dimock, an activist and organizer from Mankato, Minnesota. Currently, he is the union organizer for the Minnesota State University, Minnesota Faculty Association. He sits on the steering committee for Indivisible, St. Peter Greater Mankato, and is a member of his local United Church of Christ. Since 2012, he has been part of an international human rights organization looking at how U.S. policy influences migration from Central America. Not an expert on immigration policy, but he's had the chance to meet with dozens of community groups and organizations, with people who have been deported from the United States, people planning to migrate, and families of people who've migrated. He has shared what he's learned with U.S. Embassy officials and members of Congress. Professor, if you'd be willing to come forward and share with us your ideas.
So I left off that biography that they asked me to send out. I left off that I'm also a father. And in 2014, my daughter, my middle child, graduated from high school, and she said that she wanted to study in Canada. You may not know it, but Minnesota students has reciprocity. They can go and study in Manitoba for the same rates. It's really wonderful, and my daughter wanted to take advantage of that experience, and she left the country. And it doesn't seem far. I know you're sitting in the room thinking, well, Manitoba, Canada, that's just right across the border. And it didn't seem that far on the 8-hour drive up to drop her off in Canada. It seemed really far coming back through Canada, and where it felt the farthest away was coming back through that international border, coming through that checkpoint, coming back into the United States. To know that not anyone in my family could just drop what they're doing if she needed somebody, that we couldn't just run right up there, that we needed actual documentation, a passport. We needed to get a visa to go and see her if anything went wrong. You also can't bring a mattress into Canada. just something you should know. They won't let you do that. Okay, you want to bring your kid a nice new mattress, they'll turn you back. You can't do that. So, the reason why that's important is because, yeah, I'm also a teacher. And when my daughter went to Canada, I wanted to know that my daughter was going to be safe, that my daughter was going to be cared for, that she was going to be protected. Right now, there's something like 1,700, 1,800-ish parents who've sent their children from all across the world to study right here in our neighborhood, just up the road. Those students are part of some almost 15,000 students who come from across the world here to Minnesota. Those students, it's not just that they bring so much to our community. And when I say so much, cultural enrichment is great, but let's talk money. And I had been told that the math teacher was going to be leaving a little bit early, so now I have to do math, and he may check me on this. But the numbers that I was given, and I went and I asked our director, our Dean of International Studies, and he gave me some great information. 15,000 students come from outside the United States to study in Minnesota. Those students spend something like $488 million in Minnesota. 1,700 students studying at Minnesota State University in Mankato. That means they're bringing close to 60, I think it's 58 and change, $1 million that they're spending right here. I know you're sitting there thinking, how is that possible? Well, a Minnesota student, if you're from Minnesota and you're going to a state school, you're probably spending a year between $25,000 and $29,000. And so for an out of U.S. student, it's closer to $35,000, $36,000. The math will and that's tuition, that's fees, that's healthcare, that's buying a car, some of them for the first time, that's buying clothes, that's going to movies, that's eating, and that's living and using fuel. That's all of the things, and that money, that's the best kind of money. Because it's money that comes from somewhere else and then comes here and stays here, right? That's the best kind of money that we're bringing in. And it's not just in Mankato, it's in Winona, it's in Rochester, right? It is all across Minnesota that we are bringing dollars into our communities. My question for Brad Finstad is, what should we tell to the business owners who for generations, for 150 years, have been providing services to students in Mankato? What do I tell them when all of a sudden, almost 10% of our population suddenly says we don't need to come to the United States? What do we tell them? What do we tell them? But my real question for Brad Finstad, is still a question as a father. What do I tell my counterpart? What do I tell that other parent who's sending their student here from Holland, from Malaysia, from Saudi Arabia? What do I tell that parent when they ask me, is my child safe? Who's going to be there for them? But my other question for Brad Finstad has a lot to do with the work that I've done that doesn't really have a lot to do with being a professor. It has to do with just being a person and a Christian and a person who has access to resources. I've been really privileged to go and meet people from across this whole hemisphere who are forced to move because of the conditions that they live under. I've gotten to meet with I came really close to meeting Raul Castro, folks. I mean, I didn't meet him, but I met with all kinds of people who've told me all kinds of stories. I've met with embassy officials, members of Congress, I've met with their staff, but I've never, ever met with Brad Finstad. I've had more opportunity to meet Jake Johnson and talk to him about this than I have with Brad Finstad. And that is the problem. And that's just my question there. I think, why will he not open his door to having these kinds of conversations? Thanks really for inviting me to come and talk. We are one community. We are one Minnesota, and it's really important that we all stand together. And we are all on the front lines, folks. Thanks for being here. This is really
Thank you, Professor Dimock, and for the work that I know that you've done for many years with Indivisible. And I hope we can build a strong connection between the Albert Lea community and St. Peter and Mankato through you. So our next speaker, Beth Fynbo Benike. I got the chance to actually meet her, and I think I can from memory, I can tell you about her. She's really intense. She's a 10-year Army veteran. Her dad had Fynbo Welding. I'm a farmer, and we had this old plow, and it would break up every fall. And the only guy that we had that was good enough at welding to keep it together was her dad. Her dad is an amazing man and an amazing entrepreneur. Beth is an entrepreneur. She's been on Shark Tank. Yeah, and she has a successful product, and it's on the roll. The problem is it's manufactured in China. And we're going to hear about tariffs, and we're going to learn about tariffs from Beth tonight, because her business is being intensely affected by tariffs. So Beth, thank you for being here tonight.
All right, so as Terry mentioned, my dad's Bill Fynbo. A lot of people in the area know my dad. I grew up here in Albert Lea, graduated from Albert Lea High School, and went to school in Mankato for 1 year. During spring break, I was in Mankato. It was a really slushy, gross March, and I was working while the rest of my friends were on spring break because I had written a bad check for tuition, and I needed to get the money and get it in the bank before the school cashed the check. And in my dorm room, this was the days of landlines, my phone rang, and it was an Army recruiter, and he says, "Do you want money for school? Do you want to travel the world?" Yes. And then to my mom, Diane's surprise, the next weekend I came home and said, I'm going to the Army. My parents had no clue, and off I went. And I spent 10 years active duty Army. I had 2 jobs. I was military intelligence for 5 years, and then I was an Army broadcaster for 5 years. So I did TV and radio for the American Forces Network. I lived and served in 14 different countries over the course of my 10 years. As an American stationed overseas, I got to see how other countries live, the freedoms they have and don't have, and also how they view us as Americans. I did not vote for Trump because for me, he is an embarrassment to how we're reflected as Americans. The lack of good communication skills is just a little bit embarrassing to me. My husband, though, is a 6th generation farmer, and as good farmers do, he voted for Trump. So that's where we are in our household, and I think it's okay that we're different and that that we disagree maybe on some politics. I don't think he's disagreeing with me anymore as of right now. But the slogan of the campaign was to make America great again. And what's really upsetting me, and I'll get to the tariffs in a minute, I promise, is the way that I am seeing Americans treat each other because we have a disagreement in what we believe politically. You can't make America great again when Americans are being so awful to one another. So my first plea to everyone is to be nicer and give each other grace and hear each other out when it comes to things that are going on in our world, because this is a time we have never seen before. This is conflict and division that we've never seen before. We can't be a great America if we're not great Americans to each other. So that was my little soapbox, sorry. So I did the Army. I got out of the Army and I went back to Mankato, got my degree, and moved to Rochester, Minnesota. Got a nice corporate job, paid the bills, and met a young fella that decided to start a family with. And so I took some maternity leave when our first son was born. And when I went back to work, I went out to lunch with a couple of my stay-at-home mom girlfriends. And they just were checking on my mental health. You know, it's hard to make that transition from being at home with your newborn to back to full-time work. And they brought their 1-year-old daughters with them. And the entire meal, these 2 cute little girls were just grabbing everything on the table, throwing it on the floor. Mom's picking it up. One of them was a germaphobe, so everything had to get wiped down. And it was just, we couldn't even have a full conversation. And so I thought, well, we should make little T-Rex outfits for babies where you can like pin their elbows back so they can't reach anything. And then when the food comes, you can like release them and then they can get the food. And it was just a joke. But the next day on my way to work, I was like, well, what if there was a way to keep babies entertained at the table so they wouldn't be a distraction? I had an idea for a placemat that would suction to the table. There has to be a placemat because my germaphobe Fred says you do not put babies' food on the table. You do not know what they have wiped that down with. Those rags are nasty. So we have to have the placemat, a clean surface for the food. But for me, I didn't want to bend over and pick stuff up over and over again. So I had to have a way to attach things to the placemat. I went home, I cut and glued things together, and I made a really MacGyver prototype. I now know it's called a prototype. I didn't know then. Glued some suction cups to the back of a silicone mat, got some of my husband's fishing tethers and glued those on, hooked up the toys, worked great. Made one for my friend who had a baby 8 days after me. And that was it. I was at work, full-time, great job, great benefits. And my friend called me about a month later and she said, oh my God, I went to the bowling alley last night. I forgot your mat thingy. And it was awful. I did not realize how useful that thing was until I didn't have it. You should make this for real. How do you do that? No idea. So I started taking entrepreneurship classes. I started learning how you take an idea to market. I got the idea to market 18 months later. A year after that, I was on Shark Tank. I got an offer from Lori. I walked away. Best decision I ever made. Now that I have been on Shark Tank, I'm part of a group of everyone who's been on Shark Tank, and we're kind of like a peer group to support each other, because you think maybe someone goes on Shark Tank and then they instantly become a millionaire and their business is a huge success. No, you go on Shark Tank, in my experience, and 2 weeks later you're doing a demo of your product at an expo and someone says, wow, that's really smart, you should go on Shark Tank. Literally just was 2 weeks ago. So What I did do though is I got my brother, Eric, to quit his job. He had a very stable job. He was the manager of a Dick's Sporting Goods store up in the cities, and he was on the path to be a district manager. He has 4 children. He's the sole income provider for his family. And my business was starting to grow, and I needed help. And even though he didn't have any of the skills I needed, I knew I could trust him. So he quit his job and he joined me. And to this day, it's still me and my brother. We have a couple other employees that help us with customer service and filling orders, but Eric and I run Busy Baby. We've expanded the product line to 8 different products that all accomplish the same mission, keeping babies' things off the ground, at home, on the go, in the stroller, the wagon, all kinds of cool stuff. BusyBaby.com, check it out if you know anybody with a baby. We got into Walmart and Target in the last 6 months. Huge milestone for a small business like us. This year, about 7 weeks before the tariffs were announced, I was named by the SBA, Small Business Administration, Small Business Person of the Year for Minnesota. Huge honor. So I booked a ticket to DC to get my award. I brought my 8-year-old son with me, and then the tariffs came. And what that meant for me was my products that were in China were stuck there because I could not afford to bring them into the country anymore. I had $158,000 worth of products. It was my summer stock that was supposed to be coming in. And it was gonna cost me $230,000 in tariffs to get it to the country. Now, as a small business owner with a total of 5 employees, I do not have $230,000 laying around. I tried to do a GoFundMe to raise some funds. We raised a little bit. Now that the tariffs have come down to 30, now prior to this, I've never paid a tariff. I pay tax, I pay duty. I've never had a tariff on my products in 5 years. So now it's down to 50,000. So our products are on the way. They're not gonna get here in time. We'll be out of stock for about 5 weeks. Hopefully we can make ends meet during that time. But we won't have income coming in. I won't, I have to hopefully pay my employees and myself and my loans. So I'm really at risk of going out of business here. And it's not just me going out of the business. Yesterday, I had to let go 2 of the agencies that support me because I can't afford to pay them anymore. Those are 2 small American service businesses that help support our business. They have nothing to do with manufacturing anywhere. I'm gonna have to let a couple more of those businesses go soon. I have friends who are shutting down their business because they manufacture in the US, but their containers are not manufactured in the US. They can't get the containers to put their products in because either they're unavailable or they're overpriced. There is a bill that did not pass unanimously on the Senate floor yesterday. There's another one that is going to the Senate. It is called the Small Business Liberation Act. It allows small businesses like mine that are registered with the SBA to be exempt from tariffs. If manufacturing is the goal, bringing manufacturing back to the US, we're not the ones to do it. We don't have the money to do that. I'm not a manufacturer, I'm an inventor. I don't know how to do that. And so I've tried manufacturing in the US, and with my last minute, the biggest question I get is, why do you make them in China? US manufacturing is very expensive. And so for those businesses to make money, they require businesses to do large production runs because it's very expensive. Insurance, taxes, property, labor. They have to require large production runs. I invented something, I didn't know if anybody was ever gonna buy it. So I couldn't make the risk or afford to make 200,000 units of a Busy Baby mat when I didn't know if anybody would buy it. I made 2,000 of them in China to start. My next production run, I made 5,000. So now that this is happening, I've reached out to manufacturers again, trying to find somebody. We're making 100,000 of these a year now. So for sure, there's gotta be someone in the US who will do this for me. I have talked to over a dozen manufacturers. One wanted a $2 million commitment for the year. And the other one is willing to work with me, but they don't have a machine big enough. And because I don't have a large enough quantity, they're not willing to buy the machine, but they wish me luck. So my question to Finstead, who I have reached out to many times, he had one opportunity to meet me when I was in DC. It just happened to be at the same time I was holding a press conference for the Small Business Liberation Act. So that was the only time he had to meet me. I went to him, still couldn't get in touch with him. I've asked them to call. Where am I looking for Brad? Right here? Oh, so Congressman Finn said, can you please give me a call? I've talked to your office several times. You have my number. We don't have to do this in public. We just give you a call so we can talk about this.
Yeah, right.
Thank you, Beth. You know, we all hear about these tariffs, and when we hear it from you, it's real, especially when you got 5 people on payroll. So we don't take it lightly. Thank you. The next speaker, Bethany Greiner. Bethany Greiner has been a job coach and paraeducator for 14 years. She has previously worked in long-term assisted living for adults with severe to profound disabilities. She helps care for her father with a disability and health problems who lives with her family. Bethany was previously a single mother who briefly relied on medical assistance. She has been a resident of Minnesota for 29 years. She will be discussing Medicaid cuts and how they will negatively impact long-term assisted living, schools, caregivers, taxpayers, low-income families, expectant mothers, the elderly, and the disabled populations. Now, you may have seen that there is a new author in the Albert Lee Tribune who's putting out letters on a regular basis. That's Bethany Greiner. She has got involved, so this is not the only thing she does. She comes to meetings and she's getting really involved. I've asked her, maybe you should run for office. She said, yeah, she might think about that. So, all right, Bethany.
Hi, everybody. I don't do a lot of public speaking, so I brought paper with me. I hope that's okay.
Of course.
But hi, my name is Bethany Greiner. Today I am speaking about the Medicaid cuts in the 1,000-page bill that just came through the House of Representatives today. You might have heard about it, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. They voted on it this morning. They started meeting about it yesterday at 1 o'clock in the morning. I previously worked as a caregiver for disabled adults in assisted living. Some of my clients came from the old state hospitals where they were traumatized by the abuse and neglect that they suffered there. Many patients were restrained in straitjackets, shackles, or chained to their beds. They had no life-enriching activities. They didn't go to school. They got very little medical care. My clients remembered being showered with fire hoses. They were forcibly sterilized so that they could not pass on their defective genes to their children. They were dehumanized. They were given no respect and no dignity. This happened in my lifetime. Thanks to the integration movement, the old state hospitals were closed. Medicaid helped disabled people integrate into the community, attend school, find work, have families, and pursue happiness. Medicaid cuts place the entire caregiver industry at risk. Nearly 4 million people work as PCAs, personal care attendants. We have over 65,000 long-term care facilities that employ over 3 million people. Medicaid cuts now threaten to close those facilities, and we will lose many of those jobs. 71 million people rely on Medicaid for their medical expenses and services. That's the combined population of our 2 biggest states, California and Texas. It covers low-income families, pregnant women, the elderly, and the disabled. They are all at risk of losing adequate health care. People with disabilities will struggle to get therapies or have PCA service, live in assisted living, get assistive devices, or even mental health support. Medicaid cuts damage their ability to work, to live independently, and to have healthy, happy lives. I used to be on Medicaid. I was a single mother, and I was injured in a car accident. I broke my pelvis, and I spent 2 years on crutches. I could not work for the first year and a half of that. And it took 2 years for the money to come in from my insurance company to help pay those bills. And doctors and physical therapy, they don't like to help you if you can't pay your bills. If I did not have Medicaid, I don't think I could have paid for those bills. I now work as a paraeducator and a job coach. I've done it for 14 years. I teach work skills to students with disabilities. Most students that I serve will go on to find jobs, attend college, or get certified in a trade. They will be productive, tax-paying citizens. School districts get paid by Medicaid for the expenses incurred by the services that they are required by law to provide to our students with special needs. The Medicaid cuts will not cancel the requirements of the law, so schools will have to find other ways to pay for the services we provide. School funding primarily comes from national funds, state taxes, and property taxes. When we are cutting money from the Department of Education and we are cutting Medicaid cuts, we will still pay for those services. We will pay for them with higher state taxes and higher property taxes. And schools will try to meet us in the middle. They will trim their budget. They'll trim their budget from things that aren't legally required, things like sports and extracurricular activities and smaller class sizes. It will impact all the students and all the staff. Or we could lose the services altogether. They want to move special education out of the Department of Education and under the umbrella of the Department of Health and Human Services, headed by Robert F. Kennedy. He doesn't think that we should have those services in school at all. He says they're not academically required. He says parents of disabled students, they should get those services outside of school, pay for it out of their own pocket. How many parents do you know have the time and money to do that? When families can't afford to pay for their loved ones with disabilities, if they can't get PCA help at home, and they can't afford the services that their family members need, those people will be at risk of going back to state-operated facilities. They'll lose their independence. They may not learn life skills. They may not learn work skills. Don't these people deserve their constitutional right to life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness? I believe that all people deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. We've made so many steps forward. We should not be going back to the way it was. The One Big Beautiful Act was amended just this week to mandate work requirements for Medicaid benefits. This requirement seems to ignore the fact that 64% of working age adults on Medicaid already have jobs. It remains to be seen how exactly those requirements would impact the babies, the disabled, the elderly, the mentally ill, the caretakers, and the pregnant population who are not able to work while they are on Medicaid. Financial experts do not support the work requirements. They say it costs more to enforce the work requirements than Medicaid would save by enforcing them. MAGA Republicans supported laws are infringing on a woman's right to choose with her body what she does, even after she dies now. Yeah. I'm sure you're familiar with the recent example in the news of Adriana Smith. She's a woman in Georgia who was declared brain dead when she was 9 weeks pregnant. Against medical advice and against the wishes of her family, she is being kept alive on life support until her baby can be delivered. Doctors say the baby will probably not survive, and even if it does, it will have significant health issues. The family is being financially responsible for the bill of keeping her alive to try to save this baby. And if the baby does survive, they will be further liable for the medically complex problems the baby will have for its entire life. When lower income women do not get to choose whether or not to have babies, they and their families will also be forced to pay for the medical bills when Medicaid no longer covers them. And remember, MAGA wants us to have lots and lots of babies. They're willing to pay us $5,000 to have a baby. If you have 6, you get a medal. Just for reference, the average cost to raise a baby to adulthood is averaging $400,000. Medicaid currently covers 42 out of 100 pregnancies in the United States for low-income mothers. The cost of the hospital births alone could be $40,000, and the loss of Medicaid coverage for maternity care would result in mothers getting less prenatal care and worse health outcomes for the mother and the baby. In plain English, more mothers and babies will die. Medicaid cuts do not seem to align with the goal of encouraging women to have more babies, does it? Rural health care is already struggling to survive. Hospitals that rely on Medicaid for funding are at risk of closure from the cuts. Longer travel times to reach critical medical care would hurt not just expectant mothers, but everyone who needs timely health care. Albert Lee knows what it feels like to lose the baby place and to lose our many hospital services from our Mayo Clinic location. We know what it's like to wait longer for appointments. We have less doctors here. Do we want to know what happens to our town and the healthcare in our community if we lose our hospital altogether? Coverage for prescription medications would be impacted. I don't know how many of you have seen the out-of-pocket costs for your prescriptions, but they are sky high. Without insurance, people will not be able to afford their medication, even if they would die without it. Some people try to keep paying for it. They skip their house payments and they go bankrupt. They lose their homes. According to the American Journal of Public Health, medical debt is the #1 cause of bankruptcy and the subsequent homelessness that comes with it. The National Bureau of Economic Research reported that people without medical coverage are 21% more likely to die in that given year compared to their peers who are on Medicaid. Brad Finstad and his fellow Republican politicians in Washington support Donald Trump's budget cuts of $880 billion from federal Medicaid programs. They justify the cuts by claiming that there is massive fraud and waste and abuse. But the math just isn't mathing. They claim to be kicking 1 million illegal immigrants off of Medicaid, but they are cutting 14 million people's coverage immediately and banning them from getting their own coverage through the Affordable Care Act exchange, so they can't get any insurance. Millions more will lose coverage over the next 8 years. Republicans in Washington claim to have identified $50 billion in waste, fraud, and abuse. Even if that was true, how does that justify cutting nearly $1 trillion from Medicaid? How does that make sense? Make it make sense. So why do they want to cut all this money from Medicaid? These cuts won't pay down the budget deficit. They won't lower your federal tax bill. It doesn't even take money from people who don't deserve it and give it to people who do deserve it. They're robbing the poor to cut taxes for the rich at the cost of human lives and suffering. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act has shamefully made it through the House of Representatives this morning. They passed it through the House of Representatives. It heads to the Senate. Medicaid cuts would result in a lower quality of life, increased health risks, destroyed futures, and the loss of independence and dignity for vulnerable American citizens. It would separate families, eliminate millions of jobs, close hospitals, increase bankruptcy, and homelessness, and more people will die needlessly. We know that Brad Finstad supports these cuts because he voted yes to the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Ooh. By the way, it passed by one vote. Had he not voted for it, it wouldn't be going on to the Senate.
Well, but he represents us.
Oh, I know. He's here to hear our problems and accept responsibility for them, right? If you don't want our elected representative to support these policies, we need to vote out Brad Finstad in the 2026 election. We want someone who will do the job. We need someone who will meet with the people they represent. Someone who will listen to us and fight for us. Thank you.
Okay, can I have these four people come forward? Peter S. Soli, maybe, perhaps? Okay. Cheryl Saul. Ted Hinnenkamp. And Nancy Baki McConigal from Austin. Nancy, they're great to have an Austin connection here tonight. Excellent. These four people are going to read their question. After that, we're going to hear from Mary Hinnenkamp, who has 2 further opportunities to go forward. The one common response I hear from people with all of the changes that we're seeing in our government is, what can I do? So we've got 2 more opportunities for ways that you can get involved. So this is the best part, man. This is open mic. I've been waiting for it, so let's let her rip, everybody.
I don't know if I'm going to let her rip, but I don't want to disappoint you. But I have a question for a representative. How can you support our current president, whose method of leadership seems to be all about instilling fear, intimidation, and humiliation? And where is the respect?
I was chosen to read my question. I'm Ted Hinnenkamp, and I was told to keep it short. My question is to Finstad. Why don't you speak out against Trump's support for Putin? Why don't you support the democracy of Ukraine? And I had another question written up too, is why do you support an authoritarian takeover of the United States of America? What is your answer to that one? It certainly isn't waste, fraud, and abuse.
Sir, I'm wondering how you sleep at night. You in your office freely say, I've called your office many times, and they answer the phone saying that you represent the people of the 1st District. But voting for Trump's budget bill proves you are not. You won't even show up to hear us at our town hall. How can you represent people you don't even care to listen to? Are you afraid to look us in the eye and tell us you are cutting our medical care and that you don't care if people go unfed? Shame on you, Brett.
I'll preface my question with a little bit of information first. From the Bloomberg News, Trump on Sunday escalated the trade war to include the entertainment sector for the first time by ordering a 100% tariff on movies produced overseas. This is a concerted effort by other nations and therefore a national security threat. It is, in addition to everything else, messaging and propaganda. The second part is from MTM. You've probably heard about Signalgate by now, the scandal where Trump's Secretary of Defense casually dropped sensitive material, intel, before an attack. He dropped it into a signal chat and even accidentally looped in a reporter. Oh, wasn't that great of him? Now that's not just idiotic, it's criminally neglected. Now Heist made it clear, if this were a military officer, they'd be court-martialed. But since it's one of Trump's mega cronies, they get promoted. That's not leadership, that's Banana Republic. So, Mr. Finstead, now I sent you this question on May 5th. I didn't receive an answer. Big surprise for all of you who have ever tried to contact him. Did you get any answers? No. And if you do, it's usually a form letter. So, here's my question. Movies are a national security threat, but Signalgate isn't? Please explain that to me. I wait for an answer. Thank you.
Thank you, and we have a pretty good sized pile of questions that we're gonna forward on. Mary Hinnenkamp, are you ready with to talk to us about your 2 opportunities?
Yeah, let me bring my notes. I have very bad eyesight and I need big notes.
Mary is also a member of the committee that put together the town hall, so thankful for her work. And when Mary's finished, I'm gonna say that this is convened, but I wanna thank everybody for coming tonight. It's a beautiful evening. I know you could have probably been planting your flower pots, but you came here instead, so I'm thankful for that. We are committed to stick with this. I know I am personally committed to stick with this through Election Day 2026, and I hope that you are too.
So this is great. It's really great that there's so many people here. But we got to keep the pressure on Brad Finstead. We can't wait 2 years till the next election. I know that's important, but I think we need to put the pressure on him now. And what I heard people say is maybe we can put enough pressure that maybe the cuts won't be as bad. And I don't know if that's going to be effective. But here's 2 opportunities to stay involved. I have a poster here, say no to Medicaid and SNAP cuts. There's going to be a rally at Finstead's Rochester office, but it's going to be handled by ministers in the southern Minnesota area. So they're going to have a press conference there, and I think they're going to use their moral leadership to pressure him and maybe to shame him if he can't move. So that is Tuesday, 9:30 to 10:30 at Finstead's office in Rochester. So if you want to take a picture of this, if you think you might go, whatever, please do that. And I hope we can have a nice crowd there. So, second thing, okay, and then we're having a rally, because you know there's a town hall committee and there's all kinds of other committees, and then there's the rally committee. And we are just a bunch of rebel-rousers, let me tell you. So here we're having another rally, and it's to support the Constitution and the judiciary. And that is going to be 2 days later, so that's going to be on the 29th here in Albert Lea in front of the courthouse. What Trump and Musk and all of them are trying to do to our Constitution is just so shameful. It's shameful. And I think that we need to show up and bring signs and just bring truth to power. I think that's what it's about. So I hope to see you at one or both. All right? Thanks.
Thank you, everybody. It's 8:05. You are dismissed. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
Did you take pictures? I'm sure some people did.
Turned off again.
Time on the 29th at the courthouse, 5 p.m.
Okay.
Turned off again just as we finished. So you got her. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.